Hello and welcome everyone. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation for the first cycle of warm-ups for cycle 1 for the second quarter. Before I get started, please let me encourage you to open up to the correct template for the warm-ups and remember to write down or type down the question and then the full corresponding answer for full credit. Please be advised that this is a new unit on political parties and voter behavior. For this particular part of the unit, we're going to be looking at the nature of political parties in the U.S. system of government and also how voters vote. So let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the day. What are commonly held stereotypes of Democrats and Republicans, and how can they help or hurt a person's identity in U.S. politics? So it may or may not be any surprise to you that when it comes to our American system of politics and government, we have political parties. And inside of political parties are factions of people who, of course, vote or might feel a certain type of way. But there are also stereotypes that coincide with Democrats and Republicans. And if you completed the lesson, you might have learned a little bit more about what stereotyping does for politics from a good and also negative standpoint. So what is a stereotype? Let's define that first. A stereotype is just a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. In this way, stereotyping politics can be quite dangerous, mostly because when we clump people together into one faction, sometimes that doesn't allow for a wider view of reality to be seen. Let me explain some commonly held stereotypes of both parties. How do we get here? Origins. There are development and implementation and legacy factors of policies and leaders that combine to form our understanding of how people have come to conclusions about different types of political factions. And what I mean by that is simply this. When we look at the way that both parties have developed, we have to look at the way that these stereotypes have formed. Were there certain policies that were championed by certain factions, and were there certain leaders that give way to the rise of stereotypes in this way as well? So, Democrats are commonly known, stereotypically speaking, to be diverse, open-minded, community-focused, and, of course, future or forward-thinking. Republicans, on the other hand, in a positive light, are viewed to be all about self-reliance, rather strict, focus on empowerment of the individual, and of course focusing on American heritage and values. But these positive stereotypes lead way to negative stereotypes too. Democrats are known, unfortunately, for being rather entitled, spoiled, sometimes poor, demanding handouts, and being activists or social justice warriors. Republicans, on the other hand, are known for being self-centered, rather wealthy or rich, somewhat elitist, sometimes racist, and sometimes overly privileged. These stereotypes, as you can tell, are not the reality of political parties and how they work, but they do give rise to the way that most people might view these people in factions. So what are the impacts of stereotypes in our American political party system? Stereotypes hinder the real conversation and bipartisanship that is needed for real progress, real change, and real compromise in our government. Next question here, and this is actually for Thursday and Friday. What purpose do political parties serve in government and democracy? Let's think about some of these things right now. Well, political parties organize people into factions to gain representation in government. We cannot have a government as an institution without political parties because they advance an agenda forward and they unite people. Additionally, they try to win elections. Political parties combine to form collective teams that try to win elections in the best way possible. They try to brand themselves too and their messaging and their party platform, and this can be good for them. Additionally, they try to push their agenda policies forward. In order to move your agenda forward in Congress, you need, of course, to have other support of your colleagues to champion such ideas. They try to discredit the other side and justify their own side, and once again, you can't do this by yourself. You need a team or a national narrative, and that's where political parties come into play. And they try to mobilize voters to get out the vote and to support their side or their party or their policies. And then the last thing out here is they try to establish a lasting legacy in the political system. By that, I simply mean that they try to establish their policies to put in place so that America can be made in their image, and of course, they can essentially benefit the citizenry. Thank you very much for tuning in for this part of the warm-up presentation, and remember to complete the first half of the cycle accordingly.